So, here's a question for pretty much anyone who's ever worked on a project. How do you actually keep it from going off the rails? Today, we're going to demystify one of the most important parts of project management, monitoring and controlling. Let's jump right in. You know the feeling, right? A project starts with all this excitement, a fantastic plan, everyone's full of energy, but then somewhere along the line, things just start to slip. Deadlines get pushed, the budget gets tight, and that amazing final product, it ends up being, well, not quite what was promised. So what's the secret to stopping that from happening? Okay, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why projects drift off course. Then we'll get into the solution, what I call the project's control panel. We're going to dive deep into the 4 most important dials you need to watch, check out the systems that keep everything else running, and figure out how to handle changes. And then we'll wrap it all up with one key takeaway. All right, let's dive into our first section, keeping projects on track. And we're going to talk about a problem I like to call project drift. Look, having a project plan is like having a map for a road trip. It's awesome. It tells you your destination and the roads you're planning to take. But no map can predict every traffic jam, every unexpected detour, or a sudden thunderstorm, right? The real magic of project management isn't just drawing that map. It's actually driving the car and steering through whatever reality throws at you to make sure you still get where you need to go. And that steering? Well, that brings us to the solution. Let's talk about the project's control panel. Now, this whole idea comes straight from the official playbook for project managers, the PMBOK guide, and they call it the Monitoring and Controlling Process Group.
Okay, so that's the official definition, but what does it really mean? Just think of it like this. It's the system that's constantly checking your project's vital signs. This isn't about micromanaging every little thing. It's about being aware, knowing when you need to step in and make a course correction. Honestly, it's the difference between driving with your eyes open and, well, driving with them closed.
Now, this is a super important point. Monitoring and controlling sound like they could be the same thing, but they are totally different actions. Monitoring is passive. It's you looking at the gauges, checking the data, seeing what's up. Controlling is active. It's you looking at that data and deciding to do something. So, for example, you monitor that you're going over budget, you control the situation by figuring out how to cut back on some costs. This dashboard metaphor, it's really the best way to get your head around this, and we're going to keep coming back to it. Every single process we're about to talk about is basically just another gauge on your project's dashboard, giving you the real-time info you need to steer things in the right direction. All right, let's move on to our third section. We're going to look at the 4 biggest, most important gauges on that dashboard. These are the absolute non-negotiables for any project success. First up, we've got the scope gauge. This one answers the most fundamental question of all. Are we still building the thing we said we were going to build? This is all about fighting that dreaded scope creep. You know, when all those little extra features and can we just add requests slowly start to pull the whole project off course. And this quote right here, it nails why this is so critical. That term scope baseline, that's just a fancy way of saying the approved version of what we're building. The whole point of controlling scope is to protect that agreement, to make sure any changes are intentional and approved, not just kind of tacked on along the way. Next gauge on our dashboard is the schedule gauge. This one's pretty simple. Are we going to be on time? The control schedule process is all about comparing where we are to where our plan said we should be, and then making smart adjustments to stay on track. Hey, see a pattern here? Just like with scope, the main goal is to maintain the schedule baseline, which is your approved project timeline. This whole process is about having a formal way to deal with delays so the project doesn't just spiral out of control. And the third core gauge, well, it's all about the money. The cost gauge answers one very simple and very important question. Are we sticking to the budget? The control costs process is just tracking where all the money is going to make sure the project doesn't run out of cash. And there's that phrase again. Maintaining the cost baseline, the approved budget, is the whole point. You know, these first 3 gauges, scope, schedule, and cost, they're often called the triple constraint. They're really the 3 foundational pillars of keeping a project under control. Okay, the last of our core 4 is the quality gauge. Because think about it, it's not enough to build the right thing on time and on budget. We also have to ask ourselves, is it any good? Is what we're building actually meeting the standards that our customers and stakeholders expect? And listen to how the guide frames quality here. It's not about some abstract idea of perfection. It's about meeting the specific requirements of your key stakeholders. And that's such a crucial point. Quality isn't just something you feel, it's a concrete measure of whether the people who matter are going to look at the final product and say, yes, this is exactly what we needed.
Okay, so we've got the core four covered, but you know a project has a ton of other moving parts, right? So let's think of these next processes as the essential support systems, the things that keep the project's engine running nice and smooth. These are the other indicators on your dashboard that you just can't ignore. Things like, are our people and materials actually available when we need them? Is everyone getting the information they need to do their job? Are we actively looking out for potential problems? Are our suppliers holding up their end of the bargain? And, maybe most importantly, are our key partners and stakeholders still on board and supportive? Every one of these questions is a vital sign for your project's overall health. So, what happens when one of those gauges starts flashing red and you realize you have to make a change? Well, that brings us to our fifth section, what I like to think of as the master control switch that pulls everything together. This process, Perform Integrated Change Control, is really the beating heart of project control. It makes sure that when someone proposes a change, like adding something to the scope or asking for more money, you don't just look at it in a vacuum. It forces you to ask the big question. Okay, if we change this, what else is going to be affected? This is the system that stops one tiny tweak from causing a massive chain reaction of problems down the line. And this flow shows you just how it works. It's pretty logical. First, a change has to be formally requested. You don't just do it. Instead, step 2, you assess its impact on everything: scope, schedule, cost, quality, all of it. Only then, step 3, do you make a formal decision. And if the answer is yes, the final step is to officially update all the project plans. It's a system that's designed to replace chaos with calm, deliberate, controlled change. And all of that brings us to our final and honestly our most important point. What should you really take away from all this? Well, it's that this is about adaptive steering, not about rigid, iron-fisted control. So here's the bottom line. Monitoring and controlling isn't about trying to force a project to stick to some perfect, unchanging plan from day one. That's just not how the real world works. It's about having that dashboard in front of you so you can see where you are, understand why you might be drifting, and then make smart, informed decisions to steer your project all the way to a successful finish. So as you think about your own work, ask yourself this: which gauge on your project's dashboard needs your attention right now?